They said he armed rebels, that he traded diamonds for weapons, and that he even backed the people that took lives and cut off limbs in Sierra Leone. The stories were so bad that some people couldn't even finish listening to them. Can you imagine the kind of trauma those victims still live with? The nightmares that never stop. And at the center of all of this is one man, Charles Taylor. Today he sits in a British prison swearing that everybody is lying against him. But before the courts, before the headlines, before the war, Charles Taylor was just another ambitious Liberian man. He was born in 1948 into an Americo-Liberian family, one of those elite groups descended from freed American slaves. They had ruled Liberia since like the 1800s. He studied economics in the US. He graduated from Bentley College in Massachusetts in 1977, and then he came home to work in government. Samuel Doe, who had just overthrown President Tolbert in 1980, he made Taylor the head of the General Services Agency, the office that handled all government purchasing. But within 3 years, Taylor was accused of embezzling almost $1 million. He fled back to the US and he was arrested in Massachusetts. While he was waiting for extradition to Liberia, he escaped from the Plymouth County Jail in 1985. But how? How did he escape from that jail? That part is still argued. Some say he cut through the bars by himself. Others believe it's more likely that he had help, maybe even from US intelligence, because Washington had once supported Doe's coup. Nothing was ever proven, but after that escape, Taylor disappeared. He turned up in Libya, he trained under Gaddafi's revolutionary program, and he built his own rebel group, the National Patriotic Front of Liberia, or NPFL. By December 1989, Taylor crossed the border from Cote d'Ivoire with a few hundred fighters, and he started Liberia's first civil war. At first, he called it a revolution against corruption. But within months, the country collapsed into chaos. Rebel groups multiplied, ethnic killings exploded, Taylor's men committed massacres, and rival warlords answered with their own. In 1990, one of his former commanders, Prince Johnson, he broke away and he captured President Samuel Doe. He tortured him, he executed him on video. Things were falling into chaos. By 1992, Taylor's MPAFL, they controlled most of Liberia. He ran his own shadow government from the city of Banga. He printed his own money, collected taxes on timber, rubber and diamonds. Even the Firestone Rubber Company, which had like the world's largest plantation there, they were forced to negotiate with Taylor. They were supplying fuel, food and money just to keep their operation alive. The rest of Liberia lived in complete terror. ECOMOG peacekeepers from West Africa, they tried to stabilize Monrovia, but Taylor launched an assault that he called Operation Octopus. That thing left thousands dead. By the time peace talks finally stuck in 1996, an estimated 150,000 people were dead and half the country was displaced. Then in 1997, Charles Taylor ran for president and he won by 75% of the vote. People said, he killed my ma, he killed my pa, but I'll vote for him. They voted out of fear. They were scared that if he lost, that the war would start again. As president, Taylor promised peace, but he ruled through fear, filled top jobs with his ex-fighters. He created a personal militia called the Anti-Terrorist Unit, silenced critics, journalists vanished, opposition leaders, they fled, government money disappeared. The UN, they later estimated that Taylor diverted close to $100 million from Liberia's budget for himself and his inner circle. Meanwhile, his influence spread beyond Liberia's borders. In neighboring Sierra Leone, a rebel group called the Revolutionary United Front, the RUF, they were waging war, a brutal war. Evidence showed that Taylor supplied them with weapons and training in exchange for diamonds that were smuggled through Liberia. These are the diamonds that the world started calling blood diamonds. Those diamonds paid for guns, and those guns were used for massacres. Villages wiped out, children turned into soldiers, thousands mutilated as warnings. Taylor denied it all, but intercepted radio calls, captured documents, and witness testimony. They later tied his government directly to the RUF's operations. By 2003, Liberia had slid back into another civil war. Two new rebel groups, LURD in the north and Model in the south, they were closing in on Monrovia. At the same time, the Special Court for Sierra Leone secretly indicted Taylor on 17 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. The indictment was unsealed while he was attending peace talks in Ghana. He immediately flew back to Liberia, claiming that it was all politically motivated, but by August 2003, he was cornered. Under pressure from West African leaders, the African Union and the UN, and US President George W. Bush, Taylor agreed to step down. Nigeria's President Olusegun Obasanjo, he offered him asylum in Calabar as part of a regional peace deal on the condition that he stay out of politics. For nearly 3 years, Taylor lived comfortably there with staff, visitors, and even bodyguards. That changed in March of 2006 when Liberia's new president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she formally requested his extradition. Nigeria agreed, and 2 days later, Taylor disappeared. He was caught at the Cameroon border in a Range Rover loaded with cash and documents. He was apparently trying to flee before he could be handed back over to his country. Nigeria revoked his asylum and they turned him over to the UN peacekeepers, who flew him straight to Monrovia and then to Sierra Leone, and finally to The Hague for trial. The Special Court for Sierra Leone, they charged him with 11 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity: murder, terrorism, enslavement, rape, the use of child soldiers, a lot more. His trial began in 2007. Over 90 witnesses testified: victims, ex-rebels, former insiders. Taylor took the stand for 7 months. He denied every single accusation. In April of 2012, the judges found him guilty on all counts, not for directly committing every act, but for aiding and abetting the rebels who did. A month later, they sentenced him to 50 years in prison. They called his crimes of the utmost gravity. He became the first former African head of state ever to be convicted by an international tribunal for war crimes since World War II. Taylor now serves his sentence at His Majesty's Prison, Frankland in England. His lawyers have tried to get him moved to an African prison, arguing isolation and family hardship, but every request has been denied. Even today, opinions about him are divided. His supporters insist that he was a patriot punished for standing up to the Western control. Others, especially victims in Liberia and Sierra Leone, they see him as a man who destroyed 2 nations to feed his own power. Liberia is still rebuilding. The scars from his war, they're everywhere. The amputees on the streets, in families who are still searching for missing relatives, in the silence when his name comes up. Charles Taylor's story is not simple, but one thing is clear: when ambition turns into obsession, whole countries can pay the price. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like stories or videos like this, please follow me. I tell the stories all the time on all my social media. Thank you so much. Bye.